Okay, grab your whiteboards, folks.
I can't.
So,
I think I gave everybody one. We have up here if you need something, markers, erasers.
Don't forget, you gotta give Eric.
This is your 5-minute
Gotta
review.
give Eric his socks back.
Okay.
so, is that recording sound?
Okay. Okay, make
Recording sound.
you're gonna make a
Anything else?
timeline here, so just make a line across your board. Mine's up and
Works
down.
for what
It's
we're
not good
doing.
for a timeline, turn yours sideways. Look at this horizontally. Okay? And the Lord here, JC, okay? Give me, first of all, approximate date of his birth. See if you remember. Okay? Let me see. I saw someone put up a 1 BC. Oh, that's a 4. Okay. Yeah. And actually, it has to be before 4 BC. Because Herod dies in BC, and Herod had the children in Bethlehem put to death. So we got, it would have to, 6 to 3. It would have to be before.
No, 3.
4 has to be before that sometime. How many years?
3 BC is after 4.
You know, we don't know. But that's before 4 BC. And the approximate date of his death. Put a cross there. All right. You can look at each other's boards. You're not cheating, you're sharing.
I don't have one either. So.
You're learning from one another. Let's see, hold them up. Let's see what I got from some people. Okay. 30, okay. 30, somewhere between 30 and 33 AD. All right. Now, in that year, we've got to put in a date. The day the church was born. What do we got? And you can use the Jewish name or the Christian name for it. Same day. Okay, I see Pentecost. It was that same year. I'll put Pentecost in there.
Somebody put Pentateuch, that doesn't count.
The Jewish term is the Feast of Weeks because it was after 7 weeks, which would be after 49 days. So the Feast of Weeks, all right, the church is born. And just tell me out loud, who did the preaching that day? Peter, okay. All right. So, we have Pentecost. Now let's see what other days I want to see if you can nail down here. Paul was actually in Corinth. We know what year he was in Corinth. Give me the year he was in Corinth.
Can I cheat?
Yeah.
Give you just an idea when these things are really happening. I'm trying to remember if I got it.
51, 51.
Is it 50-51 or 49? No, I might have to look. You think 49? You checked? Okay. Somewhere between 49 and 51 here. Okay. Paul? Okay. Corinth.
49 is when he wrote his.
And then that would be, so I'll put it, I can, this isn't a, it's actually, I thought it was 50 or 51. I'll check on that one. What do you have?
51 or 52.
51 or 52. That's what I thought. Okay. All right. So we'll put 51,
Veronica.
52. Give you an idea when these things happened. Now, Paul and Peter's death, about when they were put to death. That's an approximate. Hold them up. You got a guess there? 64 to 67. Okay. Paul, Peter, put to death, probably by Nero. He really was a madman. And when Rome burned, they blamed him, and he blamed the Christians. So he's famous for having a house party where he took Christians, strung them naked, tarred them, strung them on crosses, lit them up for his garden party when he drove around in his chariot while they were burning. So the fact that he would put Peter and Paul to death doesn't surprise anybody. Nasty. Ugh. Anyways. So, and the last of the apostles to die, John, about what year did John die? So the age of the apostles comes to a close. Yeah, I have 98, around there. Okay. So 98 closes the age of the apostles. Okay. All right. Good. Those are your dates. And right on your board, what does it mean if something is extinct?
We have actual written evidence.
We still got one.
You just don't see this word around in contemporary English. It tells you something. Still have the text. Yes, it's in a museum or library somewhere. You can still look at it. We've got the document on hand. Okay, so you have to use a term for that. That's the term they use. All right, very good. Okay, now, when you get to history, actually the book of Acts tells us about, some of the activity, particularly the Apostle Paul, traces his life extensively. After that, how do we know what happened in the church? And the number one historian for this, so if you will, going the history of the church, once you get out of the book of Acts, what happened to the church is he was a bishop named Eusebius. A little background on him, and I'm going to show you how to read him cheap. You can read he wrote 10 books. He was a ferocious writer, but most of his stuff was lost. But there were 10 books that he wrote, actually today we'd call them 10 chapters, about church history. And I was just reading the introduction this afternoon, and he says, no one else has done this before. I'm on new territory. But he was alive. He was at the council, just so you give an idea of his time frame. He was at the council of Nicaea in 325. He was there. And we'll talk about what he did. He wrote a history of the church during the first 300 years. And that's a primary document. We still have that today. And I'm going to show you how to get it on Kindle book for 99 cents. Some of you who are not familiar with this, once a book is 70 or 80 years old, there's no longer copyright on it. So the price can get very cheap. Anybody can make copies. So books like that, Kindle will either download free or for 99 cents. So I just did. I downloaded it for 99 cents on my computer. Now, they'll download it to a phone, into an iPad, any device you have. There's a version of Kindle that can take it. And then you can read Eusebius for 99 cents on your computer. If you get Kindle, it will work on 5 or 6 different devices at once. So I have it on, when I don't have enough copies of books at school, I download it and I hand one kid my phone, the next kid an iPad, the next kid a computer, and we have it. So I'm going to show you how to do that because I want you to actually download it. You don't have to. If you're like, no, I want it in my computer, it works bad enough as it is. I understand that. You could order it and buy it like any other book and, pay 10 to 20 bucks for it. Or you can download it for 99 cents. So how do you do it? And I'm going to show it to you in case this. You will have to, I did this, you have to download a Kindle book app into your computer or device or phone. You can do this in your phone too if you want.
If you have a Kindle, you can do it.
Yeah.
If you have a Kindle, you can do it right.
If you have a Kindle, you can just use it. Right. But if you don't have a Kindle, you can still put it, they have a version for most any electronic device except your alarm clock. Okay, here we go. Maybe even your alarm clock, the way things work today. So, we go to their bookstore, Kindle store. Once you've downloaded the thing, so we'll receive it. Okay. And then I'm going to type in Eusebius. He's the guy. They know who he is. Eusebius. Look at that, church history. Yes, that's the guy. Actually, there's a couple different Eusebiuses in history. And I'm looking for the cheapo version here. Well, this is the one our school has, but they want $5 for it. You got to be kidding me now. Let's see, hardcover. Let's see the Kindle. Eusebius. How come I did this? They're giving all the expense. There it is. Kindle edition. The history of the church. What's the price tag there? 99 cents. Now, I did this. I downloaded the 99-cent version, read it. It read fine. It read just like the $10 one I have the paperback of. The school gave me where I'm working. So, for many ancient writers, and by the way, classics. If somebody wrote a classic in the 19th century, the 18th century, you can download it for 99 cents. Okay? So, I would like you, when you're saying, we're going to read that in a couple of weeks. We're going to start reading Eusebius. I don't know if we're going to read all. We're going to read some of it. Because much of what we know from 100 AD, particularly from 100 AD to 300 and something AD, comes from his writing. And we still have it. They have the extant copy. And the different people have translated, so it might, like King James or New King James, it could be a little different in translation, but we have it. And you can read it. And so that's our primary source. So we're going to look at him. Now, what he did at Nicaea. And we've got to give you 2 more dates here that are real important. And we'll do this over again with you so that you get this. Okay. Who's got a sock here? You got a sock there. Go. Okay, here we go. We have blanking here. Yes. Big date in church history. The Edict of Milan. Date 313 AD. Huge date in church history. What was going on? Until 100 AD, we had the apostles. And we often call it an apostolic church. Then, from 100 AD until 313 AD, there were 10 different Roman emperors that ordered the persecution of Christians. And there could be persecution without the emperor ordering it. But this is when, literally, Christians were fed to lions, their heads were cut off, and a lot of it had to do with, in the Roman world, they believed in the gods, and the Romans believed if we honor the gods, then they're going to keep our empire. One of those that was honored as a god was the emperor himself, and people had to bend the knee to Caesar. And if you would not bend the knee to Caesar, you could have your head lifted for it. The Christians would not. So they didn't have to do much, a token little offering, bend the knee to some statue, they were done. If they would not do that, they could have their head taken off, lose their job, be persecuted in different ways. But this is the persecuted church until 313. Christians were they were considered a weird sect. But this weird sect kept growing, particularly amongst the lower classes, amongst the poor, amongst the common people. They were growing in numbers, but they were bitterly persecuted. And one story is more gruesome than the other. But this was going on. But an emperor named Constantine, in 313, he controlled the western part of the Roman Empire. He controlled the west. And he wanted to make peace, a lasting peace, with the emperor in the eastern part. I forget, I think it's Licinius. I should have this down cold. I think it's Licinius. It begins with L. Count me on that, but I think it's Licinius. So they arranged a thing where his half-sister was going to marry Licinius, the emperor in the west. The marriage was going to be in the city of Milan, which is in Italy. So that's kind of, they meet there. This is a festive occasion. You know, his sister is marrying the other emperor. Peace in the empire. When they met, Constantine said, listen, he says, we want to agree to give freedom of religion to everyone in the Roman Empire. Constantine before this had had some kind of conversion experience. There's two different records. One's record, two different historians wrote about it from that era. One says that he saw the sign of the cross in the sky with the words, "And this sign conquer." Another is that he had a dream of this thing. But he went into a battle, and this, no one argues about it. On his soldiers' shields was the sign of the cross. For a Roman emperor to have the sign of a persecuted cult, you know, despised cult, on his shield was shocking. So we have to believe there was some kind of religious experience here that made him to do this. That he was counting on the God of the Christians to help him win this battle. He won the battle. And after that he stopped in the West the persecution of Christians. When he met with the emperor in the East, they both agreed to do this. Now the strangest thing, it's always called the Edict of Milan. An edict is a proclamation. There was no proclamation made, but there was an agreement made. And when the emperor in the East got back home, he then made a proclamation based on what they had agreed upon. We don't have the original. We have the Eastern emperor's version of it. So we know what happened. But the two emperors agreed. To the Christians, this was a celebration like none other. In that agreement, if their churches had been burnt to the ground or taken from them, or their properties taken from them, they had to be fully restored. Copies of the scriptures that were burned, the government officials paid to have them made again. And really what happened in the agreement, it was not just freedom of religion, he actually favored the Christians. And so this was a huge change. Now church leaders were no longer persecuted. People were no longer being killed for their faith. So this is a wonderful day for Christians, except, here's where it gets interesting. That's 313. Then we get to the council, I erased it already. The Council of Nicaea, that's an N, that's my N there, in 325. By 325, Constantine is no longer the emperor just half the kingdom. He's conquered. They've had a war, and he's defeated the Eastern emperor, promised him amnesty, and he hasn't put to death afterwards. And he had his son put to death, which is his sister's son. People question how Christian this Constantine was, but he did give legitimate rights to Christians. So by 325, there's a huge uproar in the empire, and it has to do with church doctrine. Now, Constantine is the emperor. He wants peace. There are two factions of, quotes, Christians within the church that are at odds with each other over the issue of the deity of Jesus Christ. There was a presbyter, which we would call either bishop or pastor, in Alexandria in Egypt, major city for Christianity, and he started teaching that Jesus Christ was not co-eternal and co-equal with God, that he was begotten. When it says the only begotten Son, he was saying that Jesus Christ was a created being, greater than man, but not deity. And he had a great following. That, by the way, he is quoted by the Jehovah's Witnesses today. That's what they believe. Okay, they do different things for that. This uproar, the emperor wanted them to compromise. So he called bishops from all over the empire to meet. And I think over 200 of them came. And they all were allowed 2 secretaries with them. And at that council, all but 6 of the bishops agreed that the Arians were heretics and it was false doctrine. One of those 6 to agree with the Arians was Eusebius. This is a story you're going to read. Okay? You say, well, wait, was he an Arian? No, he wasn't. He thought that the other side had gone too far and wasn't allowing, he took a middle position is what he did. He got persecuted for it. Later in his writing, he did agree with the Christians that Christ was eternal, that he was not a created being, that he was eternal, and that he was equal to God. But because he took a middle position between these two groups, he was persecuted for it. But he's the historian reading. He was there at that council. So from that era, 325, at that council, we see Eusebius was there in person as a bishop. And then he looked back and wrote church history. His cultural bias, actually his bias was that he thought Constantine was wonderful and was really God sent. When you look at the record of Constantine, it's really, I mentioned this, it's a mixed bag. But of course, if you're writing at the time when Constantine is still alive and you don't want your head removed, you know, you're very kind to the emperor, which he was. This is just how it is, you know. Anyways, so I want you to download Eusebius. That's going to be, we're going to look at that in a couple of weeks, his history. But that's who he was and that's where he was. And you'll actually see, you know, firsthand a historian what he said about these things from that viewpoint. Then, take a look at the two, I gave you 2 things here. I don't know if I have them. Let's see what I have here. I don't know if I have them up here. Who's got one I can wave in front of you here? Okay, you got it. This was taken from an introduction from a book called Church History, an Essential Guide by an author named Gonzalez. It is the history of the church from AD 30 to the 21st century in like 13 pages. Okay? It's just to give you a brief overview. That's your homework. You're going to read the history of the church, and obviously, well, aren't there a few things missing? A lot of things missing. But to give you an idea of what's coming up. Now, as we do this, this is actually a 2-semester course. I took it Bible college that way, Pastor Moore took it. They still teach it that way, almost every Bible college does, because it's so much history. We're going to try to get you up to the Protestant Reformation by just after Christmas, first semester, and then from the Reformation to 2016. All right? The second half will be interesting too. We can get the age of modern Protestant missions. That's where you can read about missionaries, you know, going nose to nose with cannibals and all those wonderful stories, you know, exciting things going all over the world. They did it. We'll read about it. You're going to do reports on it. But first we're going to take you up to the Protestant Reformation. And as I tell my students when I teach this in Christian school, we will bash the Catholics and then we will bash the Protestants. Because they both made some horrendous mistakes. And that's why I say when we get to the doctrine we believe today, it took a long time getting there. It really did. It didn't happen overnight. And we'll see how that is. We'll paint Luther as the great defender of the faith, and then we'll give you the dark side of Luther. We'll do both. And some other people too. We'll show you the Reformation before the Reformation. There was one. And we'll show you under John Huss the Reformation that happened before the Protestant Reformation. We'll learn about that. There's a lot of stuff, interesting things in there. We'll look at Patrick evangelizing Ireland. He did it. And how he did it. It's a true story. So, it's a story of our church. Now, for your homework, read through this overview. Then I gave you some study questions. Turn those in. I'm going to grade them. If you have a question, let me put my email up again, just in case someone does not have it. Then I'm going to actually let you out of here early. Famous last words. Okay. Okay, let's see. Just want to communicate 4E Handel at gmail.com. No spaces, no capitals. Okay? Ask me if you have a question. Also, usually when I make an assignment, I make a mistake somewhere. If you find my mistakes, would you let me know about them? I don't think I've ever made an assignment or a test without a mistake somewhere. It's my mark. I'm consistent. So if you can find it first, you're really sharp. Okay? Pastor Ann, how come page 5 comes after page 2? You know, I do things like that. All right? Any questions we have? You've got homework to do, some reading. Download Eusebius for 99 cents. You might look around for some other favorite classics you want to read cheap. Okay? And then read this, you know, go right through the whole history, 13 pages you got in front of you. Just give you an idea what's ahead. All right. Father, thank you for an opportunity to look at your word, to look at the history of the amazing church that the gates of hell cannot stand against. We thank you for these things in Jesus' name. Amen.